these two again. Pixel Broccoli with Zach and Evan.
Hey everyone, I'm Zach.
And I'm Evan.
And we also have Brock here with us, of course.
Hi, everyone.
So today I had a question that I think it would be good for all of us to answer, including our good friend Brock here. Have you ever just learned enough of somebody else's skill to be dangerous? And then how well did that go, or how bad did it go?
Yeah, I think in the earlier path of my career, I guess you could say front end development and product management, I guess you could say. So I felt dangerous enough because I have HTML, CSS experience. I kind of tapped into the development world a little bit. So one of the products I worked on earlier in my career, I had to play both roles, designer and developer. So this was way before AI. So I felt dangerous enough where I can code, but to a certain extent, right? Like I was doing some HTML manipulation, some CSS stuff, but I definitely hit roadblocks. Like at the time, I was using a mix of like VS Code and I can't remember the other text editor. Um, my God, it might have been
I'm just
remember
Sublime.
Yeah, it might have been
Sublime, yeah.
Sublime because I
Yeah.
think I actually had a free account at the time. So I was I was just putting together landing pages. And
Yep.
I felt dangerous enough to pull it off where I can provide some type of prototype and code, but
Mhm.
all the red tape that we have to go through. So there was a roadblock where I eventually hit, I had to start
Mhm.
working with engineers and figuring out how to get it a little bit more friendly to what we do at work. But
Mhm.
I think that was probably like my biggest step over was that one product I'm thinking of in particular. What I really had to kind of play like a developer role, and I had to just, at the time I was Googling stuff, trying to figure out how to code stuff on the fly, and not just provide at the
For
at the
sure.
time sketch files. It was during the sketch
Yeah.
days. I had to provide HTML files, so that was a little scary, to be honest with you.
But I mean, do you feel like you learn more from that, or did you just kind of say, that's too much, I don't want to handle that going forward? Well, I mean, what did you take? What was your takeaway?
I didn't want to handle it. I
Oh,
at
okay.
some point I was copying divs. I was doing a lot of hard coding. I wasn't doing the correct way
Hmm.
to style sheet it. I wasn't working in classes, right? Because I mean,
Hmm.
I know how to do that now, but there was pressure to deliver. So it was easier
Sure.
for me to do inline CSS or inline styling just to get it over the fence. But at some point, I'm like, screw this, man. Like I think it's important for designers to know about development, or if you want to learn about anything, right? If you're a designer, but you want to be a business analyst, have a little bit of that
Hmm.
knowledge, or a product manager, I think that's great. But I kind of equate it to like, it's kind of a stupid analogy, but like boxers are really good at boxing, but they may
Hmm.
be less good if you mix in MMA or grappling or wrestling or Muay Thai, right?
Sure.
Like
Sure.
I'd rather just perfect my craft and then know a
Yeah.
little bit about everything else than be like 25% prod, 25%
Yeah.
BA, 25% designer, 25% developer. That's kind of how I looked at it.
Yeah. We always used to say that about I hate to say it, but with like full stack developers, right? It's like I used to tease myself and say I'm a half stacker because I only know front end, right? I don't know back end super well. I know enough to be dangerous, I guess, based on this conversation, right? I know enough to kind of get around, understand what's going on, but I don't know it well enough to be like, yes, I can build you an optimized database and using this code. But of course, AI is helping some of that gap.
Right.
But yeah, for me, I've spent my last 25 years focused on front end development and the craft of UX and design and front end, like how people interact with your page.
Right.
That was kind of my thing. Where it's like I think I could do more in this space than the back end space. So that was
Yeah.
just my choice on that front.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I thought about this question a little bit before the episode too, and I just wasn't. I was trying to think of something that was like overly complicated for me, and I think for me, like Blender is one of those apps for me. I got into Blender and I started playing around with it. I was like, okay, I can bring in a sphere and I could do some primitives and stuff like that. I mean, the stuff that people do in Blender is phenomenal, and I'm just like, I am nowhere close to that. I'm like, I have enough. I know enough to like produce like a little scene, but I just don't. I'm not great. Like, you know, really proficient in it. So that
Well,
was one of those things where I was, yeah. Go
it's
ahead.
complicated, right? Like the UI itself, it's kind of like the new age Bryce. You remember Bryce?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
right. It's like three. My nephew's actually.
Like Maya and Bryce
Yeah,
and those
yeah,
things. Yeah.
yeah. I wouldn't even. I'm in your boat, man. Like I think I looked at it once. I mean, it's a little outside my realm anyway. I've never really been a 3D artist, but it's
Hmm.
crazy, man. Like I didn't even really know what to do when I first looked at it. I'm sure I eventually get used to it, but like the UI itself is a little confusing, but it's heavy. There's a lot of stuff in
It's
there.
heavy. Yeah, and I think a lot of people like it because it's free, but
Yeah,
like it's complex. Like you
yeah,
said, like the learning curve is crazy.
yeah,
It's in some ways there's a parallel to this when I'm doing 3D printing. You have to use CAD software, and the CAD software there's a whole bunch of different ones out there, but the one that I use, like Fusion 360, is complex as well. You kind of have, but you get used to the workflow on how you do it. So I think you attack 3D modeling in a few different ways. One being like sketches, like in CAD, where you sketch out the size and then you extrude to whatever you want to be. But there's also like ZBrush, I think is the one I'm thinking of off the top of my head,
yeah.
where you start with like a clay ball and you kind of like pull things into 3D space, you know, which is a kind of a different approach, right? More of an artistic approach to 3D modeling.
Right.
But I'm curious on what Brock thinks about that question.
Look, I followed a recipe exactly once, and the broccoli still wasn't what the photo showed me. Haven't cooked since.
He's still on food. Still on
Yeah, it
food.
makes sense. I mean, you know, he is a broccoli, so that
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense.
That's him. Uh, Brock, what kind of 3D software you think we should be using as designers and developers in 2026?
I learned to follow instructions, not to
Hmm.
cook. There's a difference, and I'm not interested in pretending otherwise.
You just don't like us today. Okay. Just- he's just ignoring the questions.
He likes to ignore things, you know. Let me see if
Yeah.
you asked.
Not my department, but if you're asking because someone just shipped a feature without knowing how to code, we've got bigger problems in 3D software.
That's now the realm. That's
Yeah.
probably more accurate.
Yep. There you go. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting thing to think about. So, one of the things that came up was like when you start to vibe code out a feature and it breaks, like who's responsible? Like who's responsible in that case? What would
Now,
you think? Yeah.
I might tap Brock into this in a bit, but like my thought is, I guess it depends on where it is in the chain, right?
Hmm.
So, um, if it breaks early on, I might put that on a BA, like depending on if it's in the conceptual phase.
Okay.
Um, you know, if it's our
Breaks like in the
domain
feature, like from the feature standpoint, or like you're already done the feature, but then it breaks once it's in production.
prior to that.
Okay.
If
Okay.
it breaks in production, I might toss that over to dev or us or design. But if it's early on,
Hmm.
like in the concept phase, I'm trying to think how high up we want to go. Like if it's from client to product manager, client to partner to product manager, so they get the concept out, and then you have a stakeholder or business analyst or just any business guy just doing a vibe code just to kind of see if they can
Hmm.
put their idea to paper with the client request, and it breaks early on, then I feel like that's something we could just test out with a business analyst and just fix it. Like I've done that. I've kind of accompanied a few guys just on quick things like, what's the best way to build like a data visualization? My client wanted to do this, right? But if it's further
Okay.
down, like if it's I don't like when it's too advanced. Like if someone built 3 or 4 pages and there's a lot of interactivity and there's a lot of code that's been built, then it gets messy. And then it's like we as the UX team have to clean it up prior to production. That's too late for me. So I guess early on, I would want to try to get involved earlier and just try to fix it before it gets too haywire. But like if it starts correctly, where we have it kind of built concept wise, maybe one or two screens and it's, in the ballpark, we can fix it up from there. And then UX takes over, polishes it, whatever we're using, right? Replit or
Hmm.
Figma Make.
Hmm.
And then we want to kind of start steering that towards production, and then something breaks there. It's like, okay, that's, I guess that's on us. But then where do you fix it? Like, where does the code live? Do you go to Replit? Do you go to VS Code? Do you go to Figma?
Yeah.
Where do you go?
Yeah, I think I mean, that's part of the question as well. And it's also like, and if you dig deeper, who actually owns the code created by Claude or whoever? Like, does Claude own that code at the end of the day? Or is it the person that's paying to use Claude? Right. So like you build an app, like we build an app like Brock, right? Do we own that app? Like, do we own that code? Right? Like those are the kind of like digging deeper into it, just kind of thinking about those kind of things.
Yeah, it's definitely, I don't want to. It's messy. I mean, I can't think of another word to use right now. It's
I mean,
messy.
it's there's a parallel here, like when like self-driving cars, and let's say you're in self-driving mode and it causes an accident. Well, who's responsible? Like if you're not even in the driver's seat, who's responsible?
Yeah,
Is it the code? Is it Tesla or whoever wrote the code? Who's responsible?
yeah. That's a liability too.
That's a serious liability, but it could be a liability too if you're building vibe coded stuff that introduces a security vulnerability or causes performance degradation
Right.
for all your users. So it's like, yeah, I fixed the problem at 2 a.m., but it caused a bigger security issue because I trusted that Claude or any of these prompting engines will produce you know great code.
So how do you think we should maintain that then? Right? Because we know the problem that exists today, but we're not
Mhm.
necessarily in control of how to manage it yet. So what do you think would be a good way to actually control that? Where we kind of have that single source of truth in the code. Is it GitHub? Like, should that be our end spot, our end stop? Should it be, should vibe coding tools, the buck should stop at the prototype layer and then it just lives elsewhere for production? Where should it live?
I mean, it could. I think you still have to have. I mean, what's the saying? The human in the loop. You still have to have those checks. But if the person that's writing the code, like back to our original question, where I know enough to be dangerous, if I don't know what's being produced and I'm checking the code into, our main branch in GitHub, and it's going out to production, I'm just assuming that whatever was created was correct,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think you still need to have, you know, senior engineers, senior designers, or folks that are experts in their space to double check what's being produced by AI. I think we're putting a lot of trust in the fact that what's being produced is 100% accurate and 100% perfect.
Right. Brock,
Yeah.
where do you think the code should live for enterprise level software at this point in time in 2026? I don't know if he's going to be able to answer that, but we'll see.
GitHub full stop. Everything else is a prototype playing dress up as production.
I
So he
wonder if he,
likes he likes GitHub.
so I wonder if he just mimicked me, or actually that sounded pretty accurate. I mean, that's it's not an opinion. It's just from what I've seen. It's just that's where it goes, right? Like I don't even know like the pendulum swing right now at this point, right? Like it's
Hmm.
like a GitHub to back, and then we had Factory as a player. You're doing a lot of work in Factory AI. Do you think that
Hmm.
that's a source? Is that trusted, or is
Well,
it?
it doesn't live. The code doesn't live in Factory though. It still lives in GitHub, like in a repository.
Yeah,
You're using Factory to manipulate that code, and then you check it into your repo.
yeah,
So
okay,
somebody still has to check that
yeah,
right before it goes into production.
right, right. And then where does the design system end up, right? Like, I mean, if there's hallucinations or if we're veering off with components, who's checking that,
Mhm.
right? Like, it could be a mix of us, could be a mix of AI.
Yeah.
I don't, that's part of the mess. We're having trouble controlling which domains we have oversight to. Um, and even it kind of ties back to your earlier question of, do you know enough to be dangerous in certain areas? Because like I've had to step up and kind of play that role.
Hmm.
And then we have there's this one guy I'm thinking of. He is now playing an engineering role and he's damn good at it, right? Like
Okay.
he's got some code knowledge under his belt, but he just fell into it because there's the dependency now for production on how to go from prototype vibe coding to how we're pushing out enterprise software, right? So like he kind
Hmm.
of just put on his engineering hat and even his designer hat, man. Like he was like a business guy or a product manager type of guy, and now he's doing stuff like he's going into VS Code, he's going into Git, he's going into all these engineering tools, and he's trying to kind of be that other oversight layer to kind of review what's going on and what's possible for us to get to that end goal of pushing vibe coding tools out to production environments. But
Hmm.
it's really difficult. And it's just I don't want to sound repetitive because I know we've talked about this in the previous episode, but I don't see it. I don't see like the cost, the effort, the depend I just don't see it being practical for us right now. I would just still prefer Figma MCP to VS Code or other avenues to take where we don't have to do this, at least for right now, because it's not really working right now. And I don't know, like, what are your thoughts? Like, do you think it's just like this revolving door, and eventually we're not gonna use vibe coding tools, or is it we're gonna finally figure it out?
The problem isn't the tool, it's that someone without the craft is signing off on code they can't read, and that's a liability nobody's pricing in yet.
Right? Not bad, my friend.
Great. Thanks, Brock.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of trends that are out there right now, like AI is making me dumb, and you're these. We're getting to a point where, and this will continue to grow. I mean, this is not. I don't think this is the end by any means, but we're getting to a point where, um, we're just trusting the fact that whatever's being produced is 100% correct. It's not going to introduce vulnerabilities. It's not going to. It's on brand. It has all accessibility, everything like that. Now I know the models are getting better and better. Of course, Anthropic just released their latest model, which is insane.
Yeah. Same.
But it's just like you know it's still a big challenge. I still see there's a big challenge here where we have that trust in the fact that it knows exactly what's going to be produced. And like I said, you still have to have people check this. And you can write AI tools, you can write GitHub Actions, you can write PR reviewing tools, all kinds of things to go back and check these kind of things to verify that the code itself is compliant with all these different steps, which is one of the challenges that I face on a day to day as well, for sure.
What does that review process look like? Is it like, what's your definition of reviewing AI code? How would you even what's your first step to tackle that?
So it's actually kind of funny. So if you're using like a particular model, let's say you're using Claude Sonnet 4.6 or something like that, you can use like one of Copilot's LLMs to review the code that's being produced by Claude, and then vice versa. Because if you ask the same LLM, "Hey, did you do a good job?" They're like, "Yeah, I did a great job," right? Because they wrote it right, just like human nature in a way, right? It's like, well, I wrote the code, it's great. But if you ask somebody else, like a third party, they're gonna be like they're gonna want to find reasons why it's not great. And I think if you can kind of pin these LLMs against each other to check each other's work, that we found that actually helps in those situations, which is kind of interesting.
And you could probably
Um,
even play like a game of tokens with that, like if you're using Sonnet, the French way to say it, right? I always say sonnet,
mhm.
but sonnet,
I
right?
say Sonnet. Yeah.
Okay, sonnet. The cheaper one. Or even if you're on Opus 4.7, because we know 4.8 is
Hmm.
expensive. That's what you're using to build what you're using to code. And then maybe
Yeah,
Fable can come in and kick ass and review 4.7 and say, like, you saved a little bit on token for 4.7, but Fable came in and just pointed out all these things that it can debug. I don't know, like, you're better.
potentially, or you could use something like Gemini or OpenAI, or something like that. That's completely different than a Claude based LLM,
Interesting.
right? So that's one way you can check those things, and of course you can things like accessibility. I mean, there's so many things out there that accessibility is a standard. It's not something we created, so we could easily create some type of mapping for accessibility to verify that whatever's being created is fully accessible.
Right.
Those kind of things.
Right.
And of course, you got unit tests. You can use AI to build the unit tests. We have visual testing, all kinds of stuff like that that really helps those kind of situations.
Right.
Let's see.
So you're using AI to check AI and hoping the third LLM catches what the first two missed. That's not a system. That's a prayer with tokens.
Okay. Yeah.
What would you recommend? I mean, he's yeah, but it's I would love to hear a solution from this guy. Brock, what about AI?
Humans who understand the craft review the code before it ships, not after it breaks at 2 a.m.
Okay. Sure.
So that's the human in the loop, right? It's you can't just fully trust it to be fully automatic.
Yeah. Fair.
So let's see. So here's the other part of this whole thing. So let's say we figured this out, or let's say I moved to a new project that was vibe coded previously. How do I go in there and debug those kind of things? Because who knows how it was written? The person that wrote it didn't know what they wrote, and now they're no longer at the company.
Well,
so I come
a whole different problem.
Right. So now I come in there, and now how do I break that down? How do I understand what's going on? Do I just use AI to help me explain the code that's written?
Yeah.
Like how should I break that down? What's your approach?
I mean, anyone rolling off, there needs to be some type of handoff prior to them leaving. There needs to be at least some type of setup that they can leave us to let us know how they started. And I would think, even giving you some credit based on how we operate now with templates, if you're vibe coding something, use a template. Start with something. So even if you leave, you're not just leaving us high and dry with just like, slop, right? Just horribly written AI slop code that we have to go in and debug and fix. So I would think there needs to be a system in place, some type of template that they're using, or a write-off they can send us prior to leaving so that they can at least give us some insight. If they boycott all that and we have nothing, then I mean, start with AI. That's what I would try to do. Just have AI kind of debug itself. And then, I'm not a professional developer. I try to do the best I can, but I would rope in an engineer and just kind of do some oversight, let us know like what's going on here. Check the file tree, check the source files, check the dependencies. What DS are we using? Are we using React? What's going on with this, right? Just to get us back to base and then start fixing it up from there. That's if the latter, if they just completely go rogue and they leave us with like a mess. But I would hope it's not the latter. I would hope that at this point, we're mature enough to start with some type of systematic approach or a template where even if they go off the rails, there's somewhat of a base or a foundation where at least it's starting with the correct design system. We know what framework it's being built on. I would hope that those basic guardrails are put in place.
Templates don't matter if nobody knows what they're looking at. You need someone in the room who can read code, not just ask AI to translate it.
Yeah, we know that, but it's easier said than done.
Yeah, and I think I think that's kind of the whole point of this episode, right? Is like you've gone and done something that you don't really know what you did. Now you're put in a position where you have to support it. Rather, it was you wrote it through your own vibe coding tools, or you had to inherit it. How do you handle that? Like that's a tough situation,
Yeah.
right? Because they're going to point at you or me or whoever, right? Saying like, well, it's your fault. It's like, well, no, I inherited this crap.
Yeah.
like,
And then throw
like
a
I don't even,
deadline attached to it too.
right? It's like, well, I don't
You
even know how it was written in the first place,
right. Right.
right?
How
So I
would
think yeah, good.
from your perspective, so I gave my answer, but I'm curious from an engineering perspective, how would you clean that up then? If you were given, let's say, whatever, it's June 10th, right? You have a June 29th deadline.
Hmm.
Um, you got less than 3 weeks to fix this thing prior to getting it, over the fence, right? Like, what's the first thing that you would want to do to kind of correct it?
I mean, that's again, it's like being on a tight deadline makes it definitely tougher.
Yeah.
I would do a similar approach. What you mentioned is use AI itself to kind of document what it's done. Like maybe do that first. Like go through every function and document it, and then I can go through and read it. And then if there's like a particular issue that's happening, I can find. I generally, I can read the code enough to figure out. Okay, this is what it's being asked of it. This is what's being passed in. This is what it's returning. And then I could actually zero in on that particular issue and then ask AI to like, hey, let's understand what's going on here because it seems like if I pass in this value, this value, and this value, I get a undefined or something that's returned as an error, and then it could kind of iterate through that. You could even write unit tests around that and say, hey, like let's hammer on this function with all kinds of different edge cases and see if we can figure out what the problem is as well.
Right.
But again, it's like that takes a little bit of time to figure out where that is and what that problem is. And that was kind of back to my, I think we talked about it a couple episodes ago where like will there become a point where we don't need like something like JavaScript anymore,
Interesting.
or Python or any of those things because those are written for humans to understand machine code, right? It's an interpretation layer where then when it compiles down to machine code, right? So do we even need that anymore long term, right? Because if we're depending on AI to build the stuff and maintain this stuff and ask it what it's doing and debug it, and we don't even know what the code is, right? Quote unquote. Like, do we even need it to be JavaScript anymore? Or could it be something that's more performant at the end of the day?
Yeah.
Like using something like WebAssembly, like in C++. Like you can get to a lower level and you don't have to interpret those things.
Right.
So I don't know, maybe there might be a point in time where there's a new language per se or a lower level language that a browser can interpret that AI can write towards and it'll be more performant. And that could really change the way that front end development even works today, where we're depending on JavaScript and React and Angular and all those things. It's like, well, it doesn't matter anymore. We don't need it.
So if it doesn't matter anymore, you think it's going to simplify the process a bit? So it's one less thing you have to worry about. That comes a little bit more less dependent. And
Well,
then
you use your engineer minded, your engineer minded skill set or mindset, and you use the tool, in this case, a prompting tool to get to your end result. You don't really care about necessarily how it got there. I just know what I want and I'm using this tool to do it. Like I will admit the stuff that I built for Brock, like I really didn't really do much in looking at the code myself. Like even though I could read it and understand it, I just knew I mean there's certain things I know I can tell it to guide it where it's like, hey, make sure you center align this or make sure your overflow hit, make sure this is overflow hidden or whatever, right? Because I know those kind of properties. But I could just talk to it like a normal person and say, hey, I want this to be adjustable or I want to make sure the page, doesn't stop here or whatever. And
are
it can
you
interpret
saying
that.
are you saying you looked less at the code of his markdown file, his response time, things like that, or just his visual appearance, how he was created, how he interacts? Like which part, or is it all of it?
I looked less at the code when it came to building the app itself.
Just the
Like,
okay.
yeah, so like, I mean, obviously, like building Brock and the animation, all that stuff, that all took, actual time. But like looking at the code and saying like, hey, I want to build this in a way that when I talk and when Evan talks, where we have a live transcript. Okay, that's the first hurdle. Okay, now I have a live transcript. Then it's like, okay, now what I want to be able to do is at any time I want to be able to trigger, Brock to respond, right? Or trigger what's in the transcript to an LLM. Okay. So then it's like, okay, where's that LLM sit? Is the LLM in on my computer? Is it, Claude? Is it OpenAI? Is it Gemini? Where's that sit? Right. So then you get that part, and then you figure out, okay, well, now I want him to speak. Right. So then that's another portion of it. Right. This was not all a single prompt. This is built over time, over, kind of thinking through how the best way to handle these kind of things. And now, now we have Brock.
Right. Any thoughts, Brock, on how
You
you
built me
record?
without reading the code. Same way someone's going to inherit broken vibe coded features and pretend they understand them. At least you knew enough to ask the right questions.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the challenge, right? It's like if you really had a specific question to me on how Brock works, I have the general knowledge to say, oh, we'll go to 11 labs or whatever, but I don't know what actually triggers him to speak or not speak, right?
Yeah.
Because that's all I wanted is I wanted to create something where I click a button and he speaks.
Yeah.
That was my ask, right? As the product manager, let's call it.
Yeah.
And it built it.
Yeah. And it's like, I know we're going for natural too. Like he's, his
Right.
latency, him being part of the conversation, which he's doing a good job today, right? Like that's
Right.
kind of the cool evolution of Brock is I feel like maybe the first couple takes, I don't know, like he loses his context a bit and he just talks about his markdown
Right.
file information, which is he's broccoli and he came from, wherever you derived him from, Italy.
Yeah, I think no, California, I think.
California. And now
Mhm.
now he has context. So we can ask him, like, what do you think were the most interesting parts of our podcast or this episode so far? What are your thoughts on that?
The part where you realize someone shipped code they didn't write and can't debug, that's the whole episode right there.
Yeah.
But you can act like, we could ask him things like where he's from and stuff like that. So that's what makes it fun.
Calabria, Italy. My family's been there 2,000 years. Came through Ellis Island in 1908. Settled Salinas Valley in 1922 with the Dorigos. Watched this whole country happen from a crisper drawer.
There
Now
you go.
can we flip them back to product discussion? So like I'm curious if we just start going back to AI debugging, if he'd be able to chime back into that, or if he's still going to be in the context of his family history.
I can do both, but I'd rather talk about the code sitting in GitHub that nobody understands than my great-grandfather's tomato patch.
Okay, we could change topics.
I love it. I
Yeah.
mean, dude, like
That's
it's so
what
amazing.
that's
We really need to have a full like episode on how this is built, because I'm telling you, like
yeah.
he's getting better and better for sure.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing. Even doing it live on the episode is cool because you get to kind of see the response time, and he
Mhm.
just did it,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool. I tested it to see if he would be able to bounce back and forth between two discussions with pretty little context, like last couple sentences, and he nailed it. It's really
Mhm.
I don't know how the hell you did it, man. You really Frankensteined him well. So nice
It
work.
is a Frankenstein, no doubt
Yeah,
about it.
yeah.
Not my department, but if you want to know what happens when someone ships code they can't read and it breaks at 2
All right,
a.m., I've
all
got
right. Now
opinions.
you lost it, man. You were doing so well.
See. Well, he's like trying to keep us on topic, So
Yeah. I like it.
Because he has context of our last episodes, but he also has context on what this episode should be about. So
Right.
he's gonna lean towards keeping us on track.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but any other questions for Brock?
What do you think of markdown files like skill.mds, design.mds? What do you think of that?
Templates work if someone actually reads them. Markdown files sitting in a repo that nobody opens are just expensive comments.
Yeah, and I think, to add to that, like the markdown files, like that's your context when it comes to AI, right? So everything you write in there, and you can be as the more brief you can be or more concise you can be, kind of the better because it's more performant.
Right.
But you got to write just enough to make sure it stays within those boundaries that you expect it to stay within, right? So even Brock has its own markdown file on who he is and how he should interact with us. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else? I feel like we beat that one up a little bit.
Yeah. I kind of want to go back to your earlier topic, right? Just the whole, I guess, being a little bit dangerous or being in a role that you maybe didn't have that much experience in, but you have to take on now for whatever reason because of AI dependencies and things like that.
Mhm.
I'm kind of curious your thoughts, Zach, like on just having business or stakeholders or non-product people have control over vibe coding tools, and not only just the dangerous aspect of it, but where are we heading? Like if that's kind of where we're working with these types of users, these types of business people that are owning these vibe coding tool processes before we even get a hands on them, like which is okay, but like what do you think is a way to manage that where we don't have to take it away from them? Because I don't want to do that. I don't know if you want to do that. I think it's good that they have that, but how can we kind
Mhm.
of work together where we don't have that issue where they get too far into the weeds and then we have to play cleanup?
Well, I think there's a couple different thought processes there. I've heard many folks say like, making sure you're using the right tool for the job, in the sense of like, hey, I don't know if I don't know what's being produced or what I expect it to be produced from the AI, then maybe I shouldn't be doing it in the first place. That's one thought. The other thought is like you're saying is like, hey, I'm just a consumer or let's just say I'm a PM and I want to build a whole application from scratch. Um, you're going to run into similar issues that we run into in design and code because you're not familiar with that world. You know, typically speaking, like some PMs are, no design and code, but you're going to run into the exact same issues. I see it today in some of the PMs I work with where they're like, hey, why doesn't this match your design? It's like, well, you didn't use our tools. You used your own tool. You decide to just vibe it out and it doesn't know what you're talking about. Right.
Right. And
So
is there like any incentive there or any I guess ROI could be a way to look at it where if we say if we keep going this path, we're going to use or we're going to have user drop off, we're going to lose revenue, things like that. You know what I mean? Where it's not that we want to take it away from them, but we need to do it correctly from the jump so that it's less rework, it's less cleanup, we're using the right framework, all that good stuff. But
yeah,
also you're not going to, lose 50 users because we're pushing stuff out that's not usable. It may look good, but it doesn't act good.
yeah, I think that takes training, right? And working with those PMs, assuming they're not trying to lone wolf it, right? But if
Yeah.
they are, then that's a whole other ball of wax, right? Like
Yeah.
that's kind of this whole discussion where it's like, I'm a PM, and I don't have a designer developer on my team, but I need to build an application or a product. Okay, so are you getting the phone call at 2 a.m. when there's a problem?
Right.
And then how do you know how to fix it?
Probably not. Yeah.
Like, so like I would think the PM would be smart enough to know like, hey, like just like in normal, hiring situations, I hire experts in those particular fields. I hire Evan because I need a designer. I hire Zach because I need a developer, right? So you still need those experts on the team to make sure you're doing things properly.
Yeah. And I'd argue you could probably drop the number a little bit. I mean, I think we're not getting away
For
from
sure.
that.
I
You
think
know,
so. I
I
think
don't
so.
I don't want to do that. I don't think anyone does. But I guess that's the part of your role evolving, right? Like if you have 10 designers staffed to something, maybe now you just need five, right? Like I
Could
don't
be.
I don't like that that's what we're in, but I would never eliminate the entire category, you know? Like if there's
Or is it those 10 are able to accomplish more,
maybe that's the debate,
right?
right? Like it's
Right.
you know, if you that's a good way to look at it too. If you have 10, could you push out 4 or 5 more features? And they're all
Right.
using AI in and of itself, so maybe
Right.
you're gonna kinda get that speed factor. But
I mean, it's
the
a
thing with
productivity enhancer, right? So I think from a company standpoint, you have to decide, do I take the 10 I have and 2x them or 3x them, using AI, or do I reduce it down to like half and then 2x those half and I still have 10?
yeah,
It's like, because you're still going to pay money for the people and you're going to pay money for the tokens
right,
and AI. So
right.
what's the balance?
Yeah, and the demand too. So, what's the client demand? What's on the roadmap? Do you need that?
Hmm.
If you have work enough for the next 2, 3, 4 quarters, then there you go. You keep all 10 and you push out a lot of those features earlier so you can maybe get your Q4 stuff done in Q3. But it's the scary thing that I think some people are trying to lean towards, like especially at like the CEO level or these higher ups at these large companies, is just eliminating the category, right? Like I would, again going back to the argument of you can knock that down from 10 designers to 5 designers if you're not
Hmm.
looking at it as 2x 3x, but just you're trying to cut weight.
Hmm.
But the category, right? Like if you have a product team, you have engineering, you have development, you have BAs, you have product owners, you're going to cut UX and engineering, and then the BAs and the PMs are going to take control over vibe coding and then push to prod with little debugging, little AI UX
Hmm.
oversight, or any type of oversight from like an engineering or a design perspective. And then when shit hits the fan, back to your other
Hmm.
point, who's going to fix it? Who's getting that call at 2 o'clock in the morning? It's going to have to be the PM because that's the only person that's left.
That's it.
Yeah. So that's the scary thing. But
Or is that, and just to add to that more, is it more scary that the PM built it and then handed it to their dev team to now own,
yeah,
right? It's like, well, I didn't build this. I inherited it,
yeah.
right?
And then
Like,
now you're playing cleanup. Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
And then you're getting the phone call at 2 a.m. It's like, well, crap, it's something you built or the vibe coding thing built. I don't know anything about it. I just got this last week.
Yeah. I like the assembly line piece of what you said earlier, which is just you can have the same amount of team members and just speed up 2, 3x and then get ahead of it, right? Get ahead of the
Hmm.
quarters, get ahead of the work, and then you kind of just evolve those roles and you push them to the direction that you want, but you still keep everybody on team. And that's not even just to me just being humane and just wanting people to not lose their jobs, but it's also
Sure.
it's practical. I feel like that works. Like you still have humans in the loop. There's still oversight. Everybody's still kind of a part of that domain, and you're just speeding up the work to get things done earlier. And we're using AI to get there, but there's no category that's getting axed. That's I would love to see some comparative view where you have two companies side by side, one that actually did that the way that we want it to work, and then one that cut out
Hmm.
3 categories or 4 categories, and then just kind of see the drop off, check some analytics to see user retention. Like I would love to just compare that, and I'm actually curious if Brock has any insight on that, just between comparing companies that want to keep all the team members and speed things up, and companies that are kind of cutting the resources and seeing how those products operate.
Let's see.
I watched 10 tons of George H.W. Bush's rejected broccoli sit in a warehouse in 1990. Waste hurts more than speed ever will, and cutting people to ship faster always ends the same way.
Well, there you go. He's got knowledge, man. He's
Yeah.
been around a lot.
Yeah, I have to give him the time because I think he's veering and then he actually lands it, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's funny.
Yeah,
That's
because
really
he's like, hey, this is a story I had when I was back in
yeah,
1990.
yeah. Oh my god, that's funny.
Yeah. So, to wrap up this question, I think, as a closer here, like I think we need to continue to there's a line here, like we need to learn enough to collaborate, but not enough to do it alone. Right. So we still
Right.
need those skill sets and from the people that actually know it better. And it's always good to learn enough, like you said, about design or about development, and enough about from my side to learn about design, so I can continue to collaborate with you. You
Yeah.
know, but I'm not trying to take your job, and you're not trying to take a developer's job. So
Yeah, I don't want to.
yeah, as you said.
Yeah.
So cool. Let's see if Brock has anything to close us out.
Learn enough to ask the right questions, not enough to think you've got the answers. That's the line.
I like it.
Yeah, wisdom.
Yep. Good
Appreciate
stuff.
it, Brock.
All right,
Cool,
buddy.
man. I think that's a good episode.
I like it. Good talking to you. Catch you on the
Yeah,
next.
appreciate it. Yeah, man. See you.